What up, Assassins? This is your OG Assassin Jake here, coming at you from Austin, Texas. We are less than a week away from Avengers Endgame and having some conversations with a few friends in the last weeks. I've gotten a lot of questions naturally on who's who, who's where, who's what, who's alive, who's dead, who do I need to know, and all of this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to come in and give you guys a quick study guide of sorts. Let you know where all the characters stand, who's alive, who's dead, who's been confirmed, who's unknown, and give you an idea of basically what you can expect going into Endgame, which opens this Thursday, April 20 something or other. Anyway, let's just jump right on in. One of the things that's helped me along here is that a few weeks back, Marvel released a bunch of character posters. The ones in color are those characters who are alive. The ones in black and white are those characters who are dead. And that helped me fill in a lot of gaps. Then there's a couple other characters who the Russo brothers have confirmed one way or the other after Infinity War ended. So we'll just run through these. I'll post a link to the character posters in the order that I'm talking about in the description. So click on down if you want to check out these character posters. So let's jump right on in. First character up is Iron Man. Iron Man is alive. He was introduced in the first Iron Man movie naturally, and he was last seen on Titan. That's Thanos' homeworld where they had the big battle for the Time Stone. He's played, of course, by Robert Downey Jr., who's making all of the dollars, basically, with this franchise. The next character is Captain America. He is alive. He was introduced, of course, in the first Captain America, and he was last seen on Wakanda after the big battle against Thanos there, where he's got all those stones, and he's naturally played by Chris Evans. Then the next character is Black Widow. Black Widow was introduced in Iron Man 2. Was last seen in Wakanda fighting the big battle there, and she's played by Scarlett Johansson, and of course she's alive. Thor's alive. He was first introduced in Thor. He was seen in Wakanda fighting against Thanos there, and he's played by Chris Hemsworth. Then we have our first sort of interesting character from what we saw in Endgame, or not in Endgame, in Infinity War. Bruce Banner, a.k.a. the Hulk. So we saw Bruce Banner and the Hulk was introduced in the Incredible Hulk, officially in the MCU, although at that time he was played by Edward Norton, and the current Hulk incarnation was first seen in Avengers. Bruce Banner was seen in Wakanda. He was fighting in the Hulkbuster armor, and that's played by Mark Ruffalo. And we saw within Avengers Infinity War that Hulk was an unwilling sort of character. He didn't want to, according to the director's commentary, Hulk just didn't want to bail Banner out of his shit anymore. So basically he just decided not to show up. So we expect that we'll see him basically in Endgame, but there'll be some interesting character developments there, I'm sure. Hawkeye, we haven't seen Hawkeye in a while. He was first introduced as a sort of a bit character in Thor. We last saw him in Civil War, actually, and we didn't see him at all in Infinity War. So his location is unknown. I assume he was on his farm or something along those lines, or maybe he was still in prison in the raft. Or no, actually, I take that back. He was on his farm. He was under house arrest. That's what they said during the movie. And he is played by Jeremy Renner, and we see him for sure. He's back in Endgame. Then Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, of course, was introduced in Captain Marvel. Last seen as well in Captain Marvel. And she's played by Brie Larson. And of course, she'll show up, as was seen in some of the early trailers. Ant-Man was introduced in Ant-Man. Last seen in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was in He was going small. And going into the quantum realm, he's played by Paul Rudd. And we don't necessarily know how he gets out of that yet, but we clearly see that he gets out in the trailers. Then we have Nebula. Nebula was introduced in Guardians 1. She was last seen on Titan with Iron Man, hanging out with Iron Man. She's played by Karen Gillan. And we do see that she somehow makes her way back to Earth with Iron Man from the trailers. Okoye, she's one of the Dora Milaje, basically Black Panther's sort of royal guard. She was introduced in Black Panther and was last seen in Wakanda, and she's played by Denai Girim. I apologize for slaughtering her name. I should have looked it up. Anyway, next is War Machine. War Machine is alive. He was introduced in Iron Man, although in Iron Man he was played by a different character and he wasn't yet War Machine, so the character of War Machine was actually introduced in Iron Man 2. We last see War Machine fighting in Wakanda and played by Don Cheadle. Pepper Potts. Pepper Potts is back. She's alive still. We met Pepper in Iron Man, and we saw her in an opening scene before the invasion in Infinity War. So she's still alive, and she's likely still in New York. And of course, Pepper is played by Gwyneth Paltrow. Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a character we actually didn't see in Infinity War and was one of the first sort of confirmations that we got, with the exception of Pepper. So we didn't really know if Pepper was dusted or not. But anyway, Valkyrie is the one big confirmation that we got from the posters. She was introduced in Thor Ragnarok, and she was escaping with the Asgardians at the end of that. So that was when she was last seen on the ship. And so we assume that she was taking the remaining Asgardians away from the ship with probably Korg and Meek, but we'll talk about them a bit later too. Valkyrie is played by Tessa Thompson. Rocket Raccoon is still alive. He was introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy and last seen in Wakanda, fighting alongside all of the other guys. Obviously, Rocket is a CG character, so he's not played by anybody, but he is voiced by Bradley Cooper. Wong, he was introduced in Doctor Strange. He's sort of Doctor Strange's assistant, I guess you can say. He was last seen in New York, so after the battle there in New York, when Doctor Strange headed up to the ship, Wong went back to the Sanctum Sanctorum. So he's hanging out there, and I didn't realize this until looking this information up, but Wong, the character, is played by the actor Benedict Wong. So that was just really sort of funny that fits well, and perfect character for that. The last confirmed alive character is Happy Hogan. We learned this from the posters as well, same with Wong. We learned that Happy was still alive. He was introduced, of course, in Iron Man. We last saw him in New York alongside Pepper, and he's played by Jon Favreau. So in total, we have 17 characters who are still alive from the original group. Of course, all of the original Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Thor, Hulk, Hawkeye are all alive. Now for the characters who are dead. We'll start with T'Challa, Black Panther. T'Challa was introduced in Civil War. Most people, I think, who aren't really familiar might think he was introduced in Black Panther, but we first saw him portrayed in Captain America Civil War. He was on Wakanda fighting the battle when he was dusted in the decimation. And T'Challa, of course, is played by Chadwick Boseman. Peter Quill, Star-Lord, introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was fighting on Titan alongside Iron Man and all of those guys. He is dusted, of course, and played by Chris Pratt. Gamora was introduced in Guardians, and Thanos killed her. I forget the name of the planet, but he killed her in order to acquire the Soul Stone. So we don't really know what'll happen with her in Endgame, but the fact that she has a poster makes me think that she'll somehow be back. And Gamora, of course, is played by Zoe Saldana. Then Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, of course, was introduced in his own movie, Doctor Strange, and he was dusted on Titan, fighting alongside Iron Man and Star-Lord and all of those guys. And he's played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Then Spider-Man. Spider-Man was first introduced also in Civil War, similar to Black Panther. We first got our new look at Spider-Man in Civil War. Peter Parker, of course. He was dusted on Titan, fighting alongside Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Peter Quill, all those guys, and he's played by Tom Holland. Then we have Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda. I believe Scarlet Witch was first shown in the Captain America 2 end credits, if my memory serves. It was just a short teaser of her and Quicksilver, her brother Pietro, in sort of in cages, basically. She was dusted in Wakanda and played by Elizabeth Olsen. Vision is an android that was created during Avengers 2, The Age of Ultron, and he was killed by Thanos, who took the Mind Stone from his head. And Vision is played by Paul Bettany. Nick Fury, we saw Nick Fury at the end of we saw Nick Fury for the first time in Iron Man. And at the end of Iron Man, or at the end of Infinity War, he was dusted in New York City. You can see his last act in the end credits was to call for Captain Marvel, and he's played by the always awesome, always fantastic Samuel L. Jackson. Loki introduced in Thor. He was killed by Thanos in the opening of Infinity War. He was sort of killed, I guess, in a way for the Space Stone. He had it, he was hiding it, and he tried to take out Thanos, and Thanos just basically choked him or broke his neck and killed him. And Loki is played by Tom Hiddleston. So we don't know what will happen with Loki, if he'll be back or how he'll play a part in here either, because he wasn't part of the decimation. So we're not really sure how that's going to work. One of the poster confirmations of one of the deaths was Shuri. So Shuri is T'Challa's sister. She, when she was alive, she was said to be the smartest person in the entirety of the MCU. She was introduced in Black Panther, and she assumed, got confirmation that she's dead, so we assumed that she was dusted on Wakanda. And Shuri was played marvelously by Letitia Wright. Then Teen Groot. So I'm specific about Teen Groot and not just Groot in general, because James Gunn basically said that the original Groot that we saw in Guardians 1 was killed. And so the baby Groot that we saw at the end of Guardians 1 and the beginning of Guardians 2 and throughout Guardians 2 is a new Groot. And at the end of Guardians 2, we see an end scene, one of the 5 end scenes with introducing Teen Groot, and Teen Groot is who's basically throughout all of Infinity War. Teen Groot was dusted on Wakanda, and while there's nobody that's playing him as an actor per se, Teen Groot is voiced by Vin Diesel. Next up is Hope Pym, aka the Wasp. So we first saw Hope in Ant-Man, and she first became the Wasp really at she got her costume in one of the end credits for the Ant-Man movie, and then we got to see her in action in Ant-Man and the Wasp. She was dusted. I believe she was in San Francisco when she was dusted. She's played by Evangeline Lilly. Then Sam Wilson, Falcon. We got to meet Sam Wilson at the beginning of Captain America 2, Winter Soldier. He was fighting in Wakanda and was dusted in that battle. And he's played by Anthony Mackie. And then Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, or White Wolf, as they referred to him at the end credits. One of the stings at the end of Black Panther, they called him the White Wolf. He was introduced in Captain America as Bucky, and then Captain America 2 as the Winter Soldier. And he was dusted on Wakanda as well. He's played by Sebastian Stan. Then the last two posters that we had were of Mantis. Mantis was introduced in Guardians 2, and she was dusted on Titan. And she's played by, I'm going to screw this name up probably too, but Pom Clementif. Drax also was fighting on Titan. He was introduced in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and he was dusted on Titan and played by Dave Bautista. So all in all, we have sort of 17 of the fighters, the key fighters. 17 of the fighters are alive. 16 of the fighters are dead. And we've got a few other ones that we've gotten sort of questions on, confirmations on. So we've gotten confirmations from the Russos in an interview afterwards that Howard the Duck, who was introduced in Guardians 1 as one of the sort of teasers, who was in the collection on Nowhere, voiced by Seth Green, he is confirmed alive. Aunt May, who we met first in Captain America 2 Civil War, she was last seen in New York City, and she's confirmed to be still alive. She's played, of course, by Marissa Tomei. Betty Ross, this was interesting. Betty Ross is confirmed dead. She was assumed to be, I'm assuming that she's dusted as part of the decimation. She was introduced in Incredible Hulk and played by Liv Tyler. Also confirmed dead is Sif. Now, Sif we didn't get to see in Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok. We saw her, of course, in Thor, and I believe we saw her in Thor 2, The Dark World as well. Her schedule, Jamie Alexander, her schedule didn't work out for Ragnarok, unfortunately, so she wasn't in that. And the Russos confirmed that she is actually, in fact, dusted and will not be reprising her role for Endgame. We've got three others that are sort of confirmed, unconfirmed, one way or the other. Korg and Meek, who were introduced in Thor Ragnarok. Korg is the rock guy. Meek is sort of the insect-looking guy with the swords for arms and legs. Both of those were voiced by Taika Waititi, and I presume that they're with Valkyrie, but they can't really confirm where they are. They said that it was too spoilery, potentially, to confirm or deny whether they're alive or dead. Jane Foster, interestingly enough, as well, introduced in Thor, last seen in Thor 2, The Dark World. Whether she survived or didn't, the Russos said was also too spoilery. And she's played by Natalie Portman. Ned, as well, Peter Parker's buddy, who we saw in Spider-Man. We last saw him in Infinity War on the bus with Peter Parker in New York, and they also said that basically they can't confirm whether or not he's still alive. It's too spoilery. So anyway, so he's played by Jacob Batalon, and I think that's basically all the characters. The ones that I missed that we didn't get posters on that I recall now, of course, are Hank Pym and Janet Pym, Janet Van Dyne. Both of those guys are dusted, as we saw at the end of the post-credits of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then, of course, there's a number of other people, I'm sure, that were smaller bit players. We saw Maria Hill, for instance, that she was dusted as well. Maria Hill, played by Colby Smulders. Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. And the names escape me at the moment, so I'm not even going to try it, unfortunately. Anyway, this is your sort of quick primer on all the characters, who's where, who's alive, who's dead, what are they up to, where can we expect them to be if they're alive at the beginning of Avengers Endgame. I, for one, won't be seeing Avengers Endgame until probably the Monday or Tuesday after it comes out, so you'll hear from us on that one in more detail at that time. I think Heil, the quote-unquote pound sign assassin / hashtag assassin, he probably will see it pretty early on, whether it's opening night or within the next couple of nights after that. So he'll probably put up some thoughts of his before, some non-spoiler thoughts of his before, and then I'll get to it after I see it early next week. Avengers Endgame, as I said, opens, I think, officially Thursday is the premieres of this week. And the runtime, I saw the runtime up to the credits is 2 hours and 43 minutes, I think. And the total runtime with the credits is over 3 hours. So don't drink anything before you go in. Pro tip, try not to drink too much during the movie. Although in the screeners that they did, the initial screeners, the Russos said that basically nobody got up. So be ready for a ride. As I said, don't drink too much before going in. Rest up so that you don't fall asleep during the movie, and have fun. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. Drop me a line. Follow us on Opportunity Assassins on Facebook. Follow us here on YouTube, and we will talk at you again later.